All right, all right. So, welcome to the Solar Healing Show, Solar Healing Podcast, where we talk about disease prevention and health promotion. I am the Solar Alchemist, and just as a disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am a holistic health educator, a practitioner. So, the ideas discussed in this podcast do not constitute as medical prescription. So, keep in mind that I am not attempting to promote a single dogmatic way to adhere to. Everybody's body is different. And so we're talking about what might not be directly applied to you. Finding your way back to better health is your right and your responsibility. So today we have the awesome Sanumi, and this topic that we're going over today is super important, super vital. It is nurturing healthy relationships with psilocybin, or what in the culture we'll call now magic mushrooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the talk about mycelium is floating heavily across right now, especially in the United States, as far as like psychedelic therapy, things of that nature. And just wanted to give a background before I give it back to Sanumi, and she'll definitely go into it all. I know for sure, just to give a bit of a health background or a nutrition topic on psilocybin. So magic mushrooms or psilocybin are non-addictive, but life-changing substances. I know I speak for myself personally when I say they have changed my life tremendously. It's what they would call it a psychoplastogen. So it refers to a compound that is capable of promoting rapid and sustained neuroplasticity. So what it does is it branches together different neurons and different synaptic connections within our brain, right? So they have trials and clinical trials that show in therapeutic settings how it's helped with depression, how it's helped with regulate with mood, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, all these different things. And they also work with the serotonin receptors, increasing mood or happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all this information makes me super excited, about the future of psychedelics. And the work Sanumi does not only makes me more hopeful of spaces where we can integrate this into our communities. So not only for the neurological benefits, but for the emotional and communal integration. So here's Sanumi, Michael Mama, an entheogen educator and co-owner of Village of Mothers LA.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for that beautiful introduction to honor the beautiful psilocybin and mushroom world that I come from. I'm here really with the intention of just wanting to share my story. I'm a storyteller first and foremost. And wanting to share my experience on how I got started in this world, what really inspired me, and how you all can get involved if this is something that you're interested in too.
For sure. I'm hoping that I know that you'll expand my awareness to even deepen my connection with psilocybin as well. So first off, I'm already knowing. So definitely tell me about, where you're based at, and tell me about what you do in the community and your business and what you're about.
Yeah. So for those of you who do not know, my name is Sanumi. I am co-founder of a beautiful organization, a sister-led organization called Village of Mothers. This is my new baby. It is my new passion project. And really, I would say it's deeply rooted in my purpose, why I was put here on earth. It is an organization that brings together primarily women of color. And it brings us together in a way that is to heal, to fuel, to liberate, to serve as just a safe space for, healing those mother wounds and those sister wounds, and rekindling, things that may have been lost, or just something that some of us have never experienced in our lives. So that is what that is. Everything that I do in my life at this point was birthed from my work with psilocybin. Psilocybin has deeply expanded my awareness of who I am and why I'm here. And I think that it can do that for a lot of us when given the right conditions. And we'll talk a little bit about conditions later. But I'll also say I'm based in LA, for those of you who don't know me. And I do most of my work out of LA, although I do a little bit of traveling to the Baltimore area, and some other locations on the East Coast a bit. My dad is in Atlanta too, so I'm open to expanding out there as well. But we plan on bringing Village of Mothers nationwide very shortly. We have some inquiries, so look out for us. um,
And that's real, yeah.
So yeah, that's currently what I'm working on. I've been in entheogen education. That's still a ton of entheogen education for
Mhm. Yeah,
for 7 years now. It has been a long journey. So I've been on this journey since I was about 19, and
mhm.
I'm 26. I had my first psilocybin trip in my early 20s, but I've been like deeply fascinated with learning about the medicine and studying the different plant medicines since 19. But I didn't actually jump right in. I did a lot of research first. I spoke with a lot of friends who were who were in the field, or just like it's not really, because it wasn't fields back then. Like back then, people were just kind of experimenting with it and figuring out their place in it and knowing that it was benefiting them. So
For
I was
sure.
learning and meeting these people. I took my first trip. I think I was 21 at the time, and my world was completely shifted from that point. Like I had grand epiphanies, and um, everything that I've been doing up until that point was made very clear, and who I was and why I was here was made very clear. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, everything just kind of fell into place after that.
For sure, for sure. I know they would say like, don't make any like some people have told me I have a neighbor that actually works with John Hopkins. He was actually at the mushroom conference in Colorado, right? And
Yeah.
he was like, don't make any like big decisions or anything off of psilocybin or anything like that. I
Yeah.
I I personally I actually like signed my Peace Corps application. It was like I had a just to kind of go into my thing. It
Hmm.
I had a wave of just an appreciation for like I want to be able to help save humanity in every like I actually just believe it made me so open
Yeah.
and bring my
Hmm.
awareness to like others who like I haven't been able to be with, that I just wanted to expand and be able to like touch in some form of fashion with my spirit. So I definitely it definitely helps me, and has definitely helped bring awareness to my like nature in a sense for me. It's funny you actually say that. You said about 7 years ago, that's when you actually got into psilocybin, but you were doing a lot of research. Seven
Yeah.
years was my first psilocybin experience.
Wow. Beautiful. So everything is always in direct alignment. And there was a shift happening 7 years ago, um, that I was seeing, where a lot of people were becoming more aware of plant-based eating. A lot of people were
Mhm.
becoming more aware of consciousness. Um, there was a lot more accessibility of spirituality on YouTube,
Yeah.
more of a popularized way. So there was a wave that happened during that time. I think that was like around 2018, 20 or 2017, I think, where there it was just so accessible. Like everything became more accessible for some reason.
Yeah, I believe I was actually on that end of the spectrum too. Like, wow, but mine was kind of opposite. I hadn't done much research, but
Mhm.
I was just with a group of friends in Nashville, Tennessee, and we went camping,
Mm.
and that's kind of how mine transpired. It was in a sense, it changed me in a sense to where if I felt like it allowed me to open up as far as like with communication. I always kind of like I was always a pretty like friendly, outgoing person, but as
Mhm.
far as opening the depths of my conversation.
Yeah.
Others that really helped. It allowed me to be more vulnerable. But I know we'll go deeper into that as well. But even then, I believe even after my first experience when I went home, it allowed me, it actually shaped or actually like reshaped how I view myself.
Right.
Um, in a sense that I felt like there were some insecurities, there were certain aspects that I didn't really like, that I was like, as far as like my decision making.
Mhm.
I was like that around that time I had been consuming like a bit of alcohol, and let's see, I wasn't eating right at all.
Mhm.
And my consumption of marijuana was pretty high too. So I was just like, just a lot of self-analysis and a lot of things that like it drew me to where I was like a lot of things that could have been vices or like addictive like behaviors.
Mhm.
It kind of helped transcend that a bit and kind of made me feel a little bit better about like that I didn't need anything. It was kind of like I was just one with everything. That was how that feeling. So I guess my next question for you would be like, how has psilocybin helped you develop more self-love?
Ooh, that's a that's an intense question. It's something that I want to play off kind of what you said about it addressing your behaviors.
Mhm,
Um, Prior to psilocybin, I have a really unique life experience. Like my dad was incarcerated for 12 years, and then
mhm.
he came home when I was 13, and he ended up getting his bachelor's degree and became a really successful person. He's an engineer. He does solar panel design and renewable energy. He is um,
Wow.
he is really like a substantial person, a figure in my life,
Mhm.
and he has been guiding my spiritual path since I was a child, even from being incarcerated. Like he would send me um certain suggestions on which books to read. And I remember reading there's a book that always stands out to me. Um and it is called Don't Slip My Mind, Don't Slip My Mind, Don't Slip My Mind. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. But
Mhm,
basically, it's about a man who astral projects, and I was learning about astral projection literally in middle school and high school. Um,
mhm.
so at a very early age, I was already studying these things that were just helping me to expand my mind a little bit, and I was experiencing things like sleep paralysis, and I was just having unique experiences that I wanted more
Mhm.
answers to. And he never looked at me like I was crazy. He never told me that he didn't have the answers. It was always like okay, well, if I don't have the answers, we're going to find it. And if I do have the answers, then I'm going to, support you through this.
That's
And so
deep.
that's the relationship that we built over time. And so when I took psilocybin for the first time, it really just validated me in a way that I've never been validated before. Like anybody can tell you stuff. Like I lived an entire life of being guided in a very beautiful direction, but I was learning a lot from other people's experiences because I didn't want to be that person that didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like if I see that you are failing in this continuously, then I shouldn't have to go and fail too to get the message. So at a young
Right.
age, I was already starting to embody like these very wise lessons. And um and basically, when I took my first trip, it was like, okay, you are here for a very deep and impactful reason. And
Right.
it drew me through every single thing that I've ever questioned about myself and validated it in a way that it was purposeful. It showed me the divinity in all of my decision making. It showed me the divinity in mistakes and in failure in um and in exploration um and then it brought me through some of my behaviors as well that can use some cleaning up. And so um I'm trying to think specifically of what some of those things were, but I guess for example, like strengthening my communication, releasing relationships that no longer served me.
Sure.
um I had a lot of empathy for like the people that I would surround myself with. And sometimes it would cause me to like stay in dynamics that were outdated. And that was happening during that time. And so they were showing me that um, it was making me very heart open, and it was showing me that like source is everything, and this is all like everything is animism, everything is like a reverberated like energetic thing, and nothing is really like not alive. Everything is
Yeah.
energy, motion, and it was showing me all of that. And but at the same time, it also did show me like the necessity in boundaries in a way,
Mhm.
where it's like there is, if something isn't making you feel good, then you should more than likely go in another direction. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
I was learning like these polarizing lessons, and this is all happening in trip one. So everything that I've come to know through experience or through like hearing other people's experiences became an
Mhm.
embodied experience for me after that. And I was like, okay, I can embody these lessons as truth and actually move forward with them as a real life prophecy.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I definitely would say that takes a lot of discipline. And
Mhm.
to do that, to be able to take those messages from the psilocybin and then being able to implement them into your life.
Mhm.
One of my favorite quotes I would used to say, I think during 2021 was like self-discipline is the highest form of self-love.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so
Mhm.
yeah, being able to hear those messages and then implement those, being able, and it just makes it so, the psilocybin makes it, it's like they would have these things like in the Bible, they would reference, and it just be like coming back to Christ is the most easiest thing you would have to do, or coming back to the most high is the most easiest thing you have to do. You know, you just have to surrender, right? You have to
Mhm.
surrender. And
Mhm.
it's just like being able to breathe and let go of all those things of who you thought you were, those
Mhm.
illusions and things, and then really just implement that you are the creator of your reality, and you can have those positive experiences, you can have you can make positive decisions, and you do not have to let the illusions of the world kind of control what you're doing, how you do. And you know, you can kind of, it really enhances the ability for you to be able to have that self-love in a sense that you feel everything around you, you know what I mean? And you can really bring that back into self. It's like, I want to be able to be the best version of myself, and
Right.
so I won't let other things, whatever the case may be, kind of distract me from that. And I feel like psilocybin really helped me with that as well, being able to take a step back and be like, what really matters, you
Mhm.
know? And what I found that really mattered was, one, my relationship with myself is one of the highest forms of how I can connect with God, you
100.
know,
Yes.
and how I talk to myself, and by being able to correct how I talk to myself. And then it started to be able, because all it started with thought, and then that thought turns into action, and I mean, you know what I mean? And it manifests into the physical. So I believe that literally starting off with that self-love, being able to, like I said, take a step back and breathe through whatever it is that you're going through, it really helps. And it really helps strengthen that self-love aspect into a sense to where it's just like, there were times where, let's see, and this is when I got out of the recreational use for psilocybin and
Mhm.
kind of got into more of like like a ceremony
Yeah.
of like asking like, what is it is need to show me? And even by that, I think by changing the relationship with how I even view this fungus medicine, plant medicine, it was able to then increase my awareness of like like the messages that I was receiving.
Mhm.
And so, like I said, that the whole game, the whole name of the game, whether we're talking about physical health, spiritual health, mental health, is all to raise the vibration so that we'll be able to think, feel, see clearly, you know, and incorporate those senses to be able to feel clearly. So that has really helped me too. And yeah, I was gonna say, even then, relating back to my first trip when I was around, I can share this experience. Is actually quite funny. Um, it was such a new feeling of being on psilocybin that,
Yeah.
like, we were out by a campfire in the middle of the night, and I got so like withdrawn within myself. I just wanted to be to myself. So like I went into the car in the middle of this campfire, like we're all chilling, having a good time. And I was just like, what is going on? And the feelings of it was just like a rush. I then like closed my eyes, and when I opened them, one of my best friends was right there, and he was like, bro, you're gonna have to come spend. He's like, come spend some time with the family. Like, we'll make you feel, you know, make you feel better. And it just made me feel like all that anxiety that I was having in that moment of like whatever the feelings were that was rushing, it kind of just like went away. And I remember just having the best night ever.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
so really just being around the right people. I was doing some research actually, and it was just saying like, you know, how they talk about neuroplasticity with psilocybin, how it opens up your mind, connects new connection, like connect new synapses, everything like that.
Mhm.
Um, and it said that our brain is actually in is one of the most sensitive states, right? So
100%.
being able to be in one of the most sensitive periods, so choosing wisely who we're able to be around, who we commune with, while we also are able to commune with psilocybin is super important, right?
Mhm.
So I just want to talk about even how how do you feel like it's even important or impactful to be able to commune with psilocybin with like-minded individuals, or individuals who are like on a more positive vibration versus like some of those instances where you like, I need to kind of get away from this environment because it's not really like serving me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Environment is extremely detrimental. I remember my dad telling me the story of this yogi who he lived in a village with all of these other yogis, and then he decided he wanted to travel. He ended up traveling to a village that had it was a village full of people who were sick. And so he stayed there and he started to do healing work in the village, and the village members started to, really enjoy his presence. And they were like, "Can you stay? We want you to, stay with us." And he was like, "Well, if I stay with you all, then I'll become sick too." You know what I'm saying? Because the majority of the village was ultimately in this state. And it just shows how I always kept that story with me, because environment is going to influence you. Like we've been told since we were children, show me who your friends are, and then that'll show you who you are. I'll show you. And I think that of course there are instances where you may be slightly the black sheep from your friends, but I think even in that circumstance, there is some accountability that you need to take, you know what I'm saying? Because you're not happy, you know what I'm saying? And I think cleaning up the relationships, that was something that was told to me on my first shrooms trip. Like, you really got to clean up your environment. Like, luckily, when I had taken that trip, I was in a very safe space, and I was only with one other person who made me feel very safe. But after the trip, as I got more integrated into my environment into the spaces with other people, I started to really notice how my body would feel. And I was like, yeah, it's clear, the body makes it very, very clear. And so paying attention to my emotions, one, it gave me a new level of emotional intelligence, right? Because now I'm like really connecting the way that my physical body feels to the way that my emotional body, is working. So now I have like this new physical emotional connection, and all I really had to do was listen to it. You know what I'm saying? To really, really bridge myself into that next stage of my life. And that's what I recommend to anybody who is really struggling when it comes to like just feeling uncomfortable with this medicine. If you are in environments with other people, really consider taking some trips by yourself. I know sometimes like we will be quick to like recommend a trip sitter or something like that. But I've had some of my best experiences by myself. And then sometimes I will call on someone trusted. Maybe we would talk on the phone, what I'm saying, or something like that if I feel the need. But either in a ceremonial setting where you know that the space is really contained in a beautiful way and in a traditional way, or just simply in a setting where it's either you or, minimal people, so you don't have to worry too much about where the energy is going and how to, keep it moving in a like positive direction,
For sure. That's definitely powerful. I know you touched a little bit on how it has been able to raise your emotional intelligence. And I know we're talking about how we're picking certain people, like, to be around during our psilocybin trips, our psychedelic trips. Also, I wanted to ask, like, how do you feel like with this increased emotional awareness, how do you feel like you've been able to use psilocybin to like transmute difficult situations that have happened within your life or build that loving awareness to others?
Wow. At this point, I really feel like I put my 1,000 hours in with my emotional intelligence, and I've went through really, really difficult stages of like, feeling anxiety, heart palpitations, lots of stress in the body, uncontrollable thoughts. I've gone through all of these different stages in my life where I've met these things at one degree or another. To extreme degrees, I would say, where it's like, okay, I really can't turn off these thoughts. Like there's an issue here, and I say all that to say that I've created a book bag and a toolkit, and it allowed me to first organize my thoughts in a way that even allowed me to know that I needed a toolkit, full of different solutions. It made me more solution oriented. So it's like, I can fixate on the problem all day, but if I don't have things in place to actually assist me through this that are making me feel better, then I can ruminate on these things for a lifetime, and create a personal hell for my existence, honestly. And
For sure.
so it opened up the neurological synapses in the brain. And for those of you who don't really understand what that means, the
Mhm.
neurological circuits, the brain neurons, they create circuits inside of the brain, and these circuits, they process information in that format. And so a good way to look at it is when the neurons are met with psilocybin, they start to spread kind of like a tree branch would.
Yeah.
They spread just like this, like what my fingers are doing, and they start to form new connections, right? And and it's really beautiful because these new connections, they help to get you out of what we consider to be loops or behavioral patterns.
Mm.
So those loops are actual circuits, and they're behavioral circuits. And when a new branch is formed off of that behavioral circuit, somebody that has depression who can be saying, you could say, okay, well, you should try breath work. And they'll say, no, I just don't think it's for me. And
Mhm.
then, you sit with psilocybin for a session or a couple sessions, and then you say, I think we should try the breath work. And then they'll say, you know what, let's give it a try. You know what I'm saying? So they'll be a little bit more open to the experience so that you can start to be a little bit more influential to actually assisting people in your community or in your environment or yourself, you know? Um, so yeah, so I was utilizing all of those things for myself before I started teaching. This is a long process of me with me.
Mm.
And I built a solution oriented, what I call my book bag or my toolkit. This consists of different breathwork practices. This consists of different chants. This consists of people who I look up to, who I feel can guide me in certain directions. Just like you have friends for different categories of your life, like you
Mhm.
wouldn't take your club friend to, you know, to the temple. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
maybe they don't exist in the same environment. That doesn't mean they're not useful. That doesn't mean that they don't serve different sides of you. You just
For
have to
sure.
know where to orient your friends, where to place them. I did that same thing with my practices. I
Mhm.
treated my practices like my friends. And so I put them in certain positions to allow me to win and to allow me to be more successful and to be more oriented with myself. And so I used, like I said, breathwork, chanting, mantras, mudras, all different types of things to assist me. Elders. Um, I went through a process of becoming more accustomed with indigenous practice. I've been going through that for years. I went
Yes.
through the practice of learning my genealogy. I've added over 130 names to my family's tree. This is all because I started to take the subtle advice that was given to me on these
Mhm.
7 trips, and then I built upon it. And each thing became more complex and more detailed, but it was like laying individual bricks to build the wall.
Mhm.
I never paid attention to the entire wall or what the end result was going to be. I paid attention to what I was being told right then in that moment. I was very present with the medicine.
Whew. That was beautiful right there. Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack, especially just using those practices as tool, like as in your goodie bag, as like using those as friends, whether it be the mantras, whether it might be the breathwork practices,
Mhm.
going for a walk, exercise, anything like that. I definitely understand that for sure. And I guess I would say that even using those, like I said, during stressful situations, even situations that are like may not, even be amicable for like with friendships, with relationships, like in a platonic or not platonic relationships, family relationships as well. I believe that and overall, I mean, just to kind of like basically say it, I believe psilocybin makes nicer people. I
Mhm.
I believe
Yeah.
that yeah, I just believe that it helps transcend past those like what it could be like religious differences, political differences. It builds a state of um equanimity or oneness within each other to be able to have a common purpose, and that is that which is to be able to understand one another. So be able to empathize with one another, to be able to connect deeper, to be able to break that heart open and connect with each other more and more. So I guess if I had to ask you one question, I would probably, or another question, I would probably say, any advice to someone who's first time taking psilocybin, I guess, what would be some like a good advice for them? Like, what would you say, like, before you go into that psilocybin trip, what would you like for anyone of the first time trippers who or first time who will be about to be able to sit with it? What would you say to them?
I would say that if you have a chance to listen to this, if you already have an idea of some of the things that you may want to clean up in your life, or some of the things that you're not serving, that aren't serving you, do that first. Because it's like hiring someone to come into your business to do something that you already knew needed to be done, and now you're paying for it. You know, you're paying for the advice that you already knew that you needed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to try and clean your slate as much as you can, you know you're already consciously accountable for. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're already consciously accountable for these things, then try and clean it up. But if you're really struggling with behavioral patterns and, you know, getting out of these circuits, that's where you can call on the assistance of the psilocybin. So really just think wisely about, you know, what your intention is going in with this medicine. Intention is everything, and it'll do amazing work for you. But if you know that you know, smoking cigarettes makes you stressed out, and you keep smoking the cigarettes, and then you go on a shroom trip, and then they highlight to you that it was the cigarettes, you're going to be mad as hell because you knew it was the cigarettes, and you're going to feel like, okay, did I really get anything out of this? You know, but if you already start working on that, then there is a great chance that they'll show you something else. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing I kind of wanted to touch on, which is that we always talk about these beautiful stories of what psilocybin does for people who are sick, or who have some type of ailment or illness that they're trying to face or battle with. But we never talk about what it does for people who are primarily healthy. That was my particular situation. And I feel like I'm a really unique case in that way, because I was already on a health and healing journey when I started my work with this medicine. So it didn't, and I don't like to call it a medicine, with this tool. And so it didn't act as a medicine for me per se. It acted more like a tool. It was more of a device for me to expand my consciousness and to surf the webs of my consciousness and to understand how consciousness works in a very unique way, versus me having to necessarily tailor or shift or clean up any behavioral patterns that weren't serving me.
For sure. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's awesome. I would say that's a great way to look at it, because I had gotten to a point where I felt like I wasn't trying to, like, I guess we're all kind of in a state of healing in a sense, but like I had felt like I had gotten to a certain point where I wasn't trying to like help with any like addictive behavior or help with any anxiety or depression or anything like that. I was trying to use it to be able to like transcend, just to keep ascending in a sense. And like you said, surf the ethers, all those different things. So that's beautiful that you said that. I would say, how would you feel about I guess that we can relate that to, there is no such thing as a bad trip in a sense, only a trip. You know what I mean? What would you say, that there's no such thing as a bad
So
trip?
glad that you brought this up, because you had said, earlier that mushrooms, it makes more happy people and it brings oneness. And I say, yes, that is the side of the coin. Everything has duality. Every single thing, even the best things on this planet. And some of the best things have the worst dual side. You know what I'm saying? The polar opposite of those things are like very intense and very extreme. And so in my particular case, I'm understudy right now to do work with people who have lost parts of themselves during psilocybin trips. And it is part of the reason why I'm here. The intensity of what can happen to a very fragile mind on a quote unquote bad psilocybin trip is not to be underestimated. It is
Yeah.
really happening, and we already, as people of color, are very fragile because, you know, we've been fighting a colonial war for a very, very long time. It started
Mhm.
off as something more physical. It has now transcended and evolutionized to something more mental.
Mhm.
And this is, you know, this tool is also very mental. You know what I'm saying? So now, you know, we're kind of mixing these two spaces together, and it can be very beautiful for a stable mind. But if your mind was already in a very fragile space, it can be very challenging. You know, it can be. Um, I've seen people with a fragile mind transcend completely and
Yeah.
feel amazing afterwards. I've seen people with a fragile mind completely crippled. And so
Okay.
I think it's just important to know that it's okay to spread the beautiful positivities of what this medicine can do. But I think it's also equally important for some of us who are interested in advocating for this medicine to not only speak up about the adverse effects, but to
Yeah.
also be very proactive in what the solutions are going to look like for when this medicine becomes and this tool becomes more widespread. How will we be helping the people in our community to come back from, you know, these places that we know nothing about?
Yes. I'm glad you said that. That's something that actually needs to be touched on as somebody who works closely with psilocybin. Thank you for sharing that, because that's not a side of the coin that a lot of people end up sharing. So
Mhm,
that's something to be mindful of.
mhm.
That's something to be able to take into consideration especially when going into your first trip. Now, just to ask, do you have any offerings or anything, like I said, for the people listening, have any offerings to where, like I said, you help with like first time experiences, or maybe, or just anything like that, any of the programs or anything that you would offer to the public, to the community?
So, personally, you can contact me if you want to know more about like me doing a one-on-one with you, like a trip sitting situation. I'm more than willing to sit and be that guide. I don't offer group ceremony at this time because it's just not where I'm at in my journey. Um,
Mhm.
but it's something that maybe will be an offering of mine in the future. I'm not really sure. Um, Also, I do integration sessions. You can go online. You can go right to my Instagram link in the bio, and you can click on my Calendly booking page, and it will bring you right to all of my offerings. I do integration sessions. I also do educational sessions. I do a lot of work with psilocybin in mothers. I'm a certified doula also, so I love to do work with psilocybin and motherhood. I worked on a amazing, extensive course with a few other beautiful women of color through a platform called Double Blind Mag. It is the biggest psilocybin media platform in the United States, and we did a course on psychedelics and parenthood. So that are psychedelics and maternity, actually. So
Oh,
that is also linked in the bio if you want to educate yourself, if you're wanting to commune with psilocybin during pregnancy or during postpartum and you have questions. We cover everything extensively. We cover things that you would be surprised about, all the way from like what it would be like, communing with, psilocybin with children, everything, everything under the sun. And we've done a lot of work educating ourselves and, putting ourselves on the front line of something that is a very sensitive topic so that everybody can do this in a safe way. Um, and then lastly, I'll say, um, I'm very open. I'm very, you know, accessible. You can contact me through DM if you have any additional questions. Um,
mhm.
and yeah, October 11th, I'll be doing a TED Talk on it's actually on emancipation of the mind. And I'll be specifically talking about psychedelics and maternity in that specific talk. So you all will see a lot more from me coming soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Naomi, for even taking part. Thank you for being a part of this show on the Solar Healing Podcast and dropping all these gems and beautiful information on the benefits and the things and the considerations of psilocybin. So thank you. For everyone watching, her Instagram and her website will be within the bio, within the description of the podcast. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we appreciate you. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Yay. Ooh.